Yo guys, how's it going? Otaku Ops here. I hope you're doing well. Today is kind of part 2 coverage of L'Empereur by KOEI. What happened was in the first video, I really wanted to focus just on the fifth scenario, how to beat it. So I gave you tips and hints and advice how to achieve that. And it is beatable, like I proved last time around. But I see a lot of videos on YouTube where people are looking at this game and they're like, how do I play this? What do I do? And then they just, in the first turn attack and they lose and then that's it. They give up. And that's very unfortunate because it's actually a very good game. It's a very good kind of chess game. So today I'd like to do that. So it's going to be a mixture of the old video since I, for some reason, decided to talk about the interface in it, which was not the point. And I'm going to add some new points today so you can really understand what's going on. I'm going to go through the whole menus as well so that you know exactly what you're doing. So when you get to the title screen, it looks like this, right? You got start new game, resume saved game, and create a save disk. Create a save disk just erases all the save games. Basically, I don't know, maybe you need to do that. I never used it. Resume saved game is self-explanatory. We're going to start a new game. And we're going to do the third scenario, which is Napoleon as premier consul. We're going to play a game. We don't need to watch other battles, and we're ready to begin. So the reason why I picked this is because you start with this map, right? So this map is the kind of strategy map. So as you can see here, for example, Turkey is proposing a friendship treaty. Accept, yes or no? Sure, why not? Let's go for that. Okay, so this is the interface that you're looking at. I'm just gonna go through each and every part so you can understand what you're seeing. The gold, food, and material, these are resources in your national treasury, okay? So there are cities designed as kind of, what do you call them? Like supply cities. And so from time to time, they provide gold, food, and material to the national treasury, and then you can use that to send it elsewhere. So it's basically resource management. You're doing that a lot. Logistics. And in the fifth scenario, logistics is super important. So that's why you need to get as good as possible at it early on. So this is it. Industry, commerce, agriculture, the next here. These are just the totals of your development index. So as you can see, industry is not very high. Commerce and agriculture is okay though. If you look at countries like England, and then in England the food production is very low, but their industry output is very, very high. That's why England has a huge supply of materials. Next we have a fleet. I'll explain this one later. And this is guns. So fleet is just, how many boats you have. There's only one kind of boats, okay? So it's not like in Total War where you have multiple kinds of boats. No, this is just one kind of boat. Let's say ship of the line, which is a lot. I mean, 124. But anyway, this one is actually how much you spend per turn in gold for gun production, okay? So I'll explain where you do that. And this finally is the gun. So right now I have no guns in reserve. Like I said in the previous coverage, artillery is super important in this game. Artillery can win battles, on its own. So it's very important. Finally, we have food supply, material supply, and overall happiness. Well, this depends, of course. This is an average of all your cities. So, of course, you're trying to have these as close to 100 as possible. But it's very tough, actually, very tough. Because some cities require a lot, some cities less. Anyway, let's go through the menu. And I'll go one by one to explain what we're seeing here. So if you click the mouse, I hope you're playing with the mouse, not the keyboard. Keyboard is terrible. Don't play with keyboard. So if you hold the mouse key button pressed, you're going to see this bar appear at the top. And this is the command menu if you want. So first you have army. Expenditures. So this is the one you choose to produce guns. So if I click on that, it's going to ask me, okay, how much money I want to spend per... Okay, it's not per turn, actually, it's per season. That's more accurate. So how much money do I spend per season for gun production. Of course, the higher you pay, the more guns you produce, but you have to be careful because maybe you don't have enough money, all right? Anyway, I'm gonna skip that for now, but anyway, that's what you do. And recruit POWs, well, that's, you know, if you fight battles, occasionally you will capture some generals, and so you can try to recruit them. It's pretty tough because usually their loyalty is very high, but if their loyalty is pretty low, then you have a good chance to recruit them. So yeah, do that whenever possible. Next, deploy. So deploy doesn't work for me because I don't have any artillery in reserve, okay? So if I had guns in reserve, this would allow me to move the artillery somewhere, wherever I choose, actually, okay? Give. So I can choose to give food and materials. I think this goes to the overall average. I'm not really sure, actually. I never used this menu, so I don't know. Probably, yeah, it's distributed evenly or something like that, I would guess. Ship is very self-explanatory. You can move your fleet, you can build ships, you can scrap ships. Scrap ships, I don't know, I don't use that, but I can see why you would. Basically, if you go to the view menu later on, you have a sea control button at the top, at the bottom here. And you can see that, for example, right now, England is in control of most seas and Russia is in control of the Baltic Sea. As you build more ships, as you gain that advantage, you're going to start to take control of the seas, and that's important because you need that in order to launch naval invasions. But remember that apart from the fifth scenario, the scenarios 1 to 4, Nelson is alive for the English, and so basically it results in an automatic win for the British Navy. I think it doesn't matter how many ships you have and how many they have, it's just an automatic win for them, but only one time, because whatever happens, he gets killed in the battle. So then the next one you launch is without him and you can win. Anyway, that's about the seas. Delegate, so this is just, yeah, if you want to change how the CPU manages a city, then you can do that. For example, let's say Marseille, you know, you can choose a national tax or normal tax. I don't really use that either, but you can use it if you want. Move, you can move officers, so from city to city. This is very useful in some scenarios where right now, before the game actually starts, you already have to start moving pieces to block somebody, for example. Supplies, okay, you're moving supplies from one city to another. This is very useful because, again, logistics is a big part of the game. And treasury, so this would mean my national treasury, which I showed you here, like these numbers here. I can transfer it to cities which I want. Again, this is very useful for logistics. All right, next we got person, or personnel, I should say. We have appoint, so if you want to appoint a different governor, the CPU, usually when you move her out, by default it chooses somebody, but if you don't like that person for some reason, you can change it to somebody else, okay? Dispatch means that dispatch is okay. Oh yeah, I see. Yeah, so that's what I was thinking, right? Dispatch means that you have officers in reserve and you basically dispatch them to the cities that you want. Reserve is the opposite. Maybe you want to move some officers back to the reserve. This is useful later on, maybe, because when you expanded your empire, let's say like you're in Russia all the way, and now you need a general very quickly back to Spain, well, you would use that because to move them all the way from Russia would take probably a year in game time. Sometimes you don't have that time, right? So yeah. Next one is trade. So again, this is only allowed as premier consul or emperor. So you can import food, export food, import material, export material. I don't think I need to comment too much on that one. Diplomacy, you can form an alliance. You can form a treaty, which is, I think, just a peace treaty. You can stop. Oh, treaty I think is actually a trade treaty. That's what it means here. Stop trade. So if you want to break some trade, declare war. That's pretty self-explanatory. And swap POVs. So if somebody else captured your generals during a battle, you can pay money to get them back. Usually, well, I think in all cases actually, it costs 1,000 gold per general. So you don't really want to do that because you don't want to spend money on that, okay? You want to avoid that as much as possible. Rest is basically, if you're done here, then you click on rest. We're going to do that in a moment, actually. Options menu, the last one here, is just music, sound, stuff like that. View menu, so this is where you can see the cities, you can see who is in the city, you can see like how many troops they have, etc. Very useful menu to check who's on your border. Diplomacy, of course, is you can see who is allied to you and who's not. Right now you can see that most of them are on good terms with France, so yeah, there's not much to say here. We're gonna rest. Basically, yeah, you click rest and then the game will start, right? So the other factions will move, and this is the menu of the city management now, okay? So in the previous episode, I already talked about all of this here, all of this panel here, troops, etc. Just to briefly give you an overview here of what we're looking at, since I'm describing the game in a walkthrough manner. So you basically have, right now I'm in Lille, as you can see, it's the city flashing here on the map. And you have your gold, your food, and your material. This is the three main, what do you call it, resources in the game. Gold is, it comes from money, of course, it's like income. At the end of the year, you get income, but also during the year, you get income based on your commerce score, which is right here. So right now I have 35, which is actually pretty low. Food mostly comes in harvests, and that's usually like, I think after July, at the end of July, you get your harvest. Other than that, the food is always in a minus. Usually you either pay for the people or for the supply of the troops. And material comes from industry. So industry right here, I have 31 at the moment, which again is very low. Material only goes down if your city is designated as a resource city. So like then it goes to national tax, basically. Yeah. So what is it for? Well, with gold, basically you supply your army mostly. You buy boats, you buy troops, and you also spend gold to improve industry, commerce, agriculture, and hospital size. Hospital size is actually not super important because from time to time in the game you'll have diseases like cholera or like epidemics or something. And I think the higher the hospital size, the better it deals with those, but I'm not entirely sure. But you do need to increase your industry and commerce levels, though, that's for sure. Food supply, it applies the food supply of the city. So here it's 71, which is pretty good. People are generally fed. Materials supply the material supply, which here is 51 in this case. And this red cross on the white sheet of paper is 43, which actually is, I believe, the happiness of the citizens at the moment. Okay, so this icon here, I think it looks like a forge or something. So this is maybe to make cannons. I guess if you need a forge to make cannons. So that's probably it, but I'm not entirely sure. And this panel below represents the troops. So basically, the first three, infantry, cavalry, artillery, just means how many generals of each you have. It's just to give you a mental image. That's all. This is the reserves, so infantry reserves, cavalry reserves, which again, you need money to buy horses, and artillery reserves, which comes from another menu, which I'll show you a bit later. And this is the actual troops. So men 0, morale 0, of course, training 0. What I didn't discuss though is the command menu. So I'll do that now. First you have war. So this is, if you have somebody to attack, the map will highlight the cities you can attack. Remember, in this scenario, most people right now are on good terms with France, so unfortunately there's nobody to attack. But I will show you a battle in the next part, so don't worry. Usually you can attack by land or by sea, but of course right now we're in Paris, so we can't attack anyone by sea. You have to be on the coast to do that. Supply food and material. So I'm not entirely sure what that means. I think it's basically the city requires a supply, and if you set it to high, then they get the full amount, so they're happier. And if they get the low amount, the happiness decreases, right? So then you have to spend some time giving them money later, or food later. I don't really use this myself, so I don't know. Give, though, that's what I'm saying. Like, you can give food and materials, and that's going to improve the level of supply, and ultimately it's going to make people happier. Okay? Ask, this doesn't work as Premier Consul. This only works when you are commander and commander-in-chief. Basically, you can request money, you can request food or materials or guns or ships, I think, too. But whether the government, whether the CPU approves it or not is a different matter. Usually, I think 90% of my requests get rejected. So don't rely on it. You may get lucky, but don't rely on it too much. The CPU is not very bright here. Recruit, so recruit soldiers, right? Soldiers, horses, and reassign. So usually you can recruit soldiers during the year, but after a certain month you can't. So I'm not exactly sure when, but it starts in March. In March you can start. And I think in October, November you still can, but probably December you can't, okay? So that you can recruit troops within that bubble. Horses, you can hire them by any time though. But they need money and they're quite expensive. Personally, I don't like cavalry units too much in this game, but sometimes you need them, okay? So it's up to you how to play. Move is just, you again move officers, supply, or to the treasury, right? Army, we have a speech, reward, and train. So speech increases morale, train increases training, and reward is for rewarding increasing loyalty. So if the loyalty becomes too low, some generals are actually deserting to other nations, and you don't really want that to happen. Sometimes it's inevitable, but you don't really want that to happen. So you need from time to time to give them money so that, their loyalty is not too low. What do I mean by too low? I think I've seen generals desert with even 40 loyalty or something like that. So be careful. When it gets to 40, be careful. 50 I think is all right. You'll be safe. And of course, anything over 50 is very safe. Invest. So you can invest in industry, commerce, agriculture, medical. So again, these are, these three here, four actually, I should say. Okay. So of course, you're trying to improve industry because you make more materials. Commerce is good because from time to time you get indirect income, which you need. Agriculture is great because it's food, medical, hospital size. I'm still not exactly sure how it works, but try to keep it high. It makes people happy. Next one, we have tax. So this is if you want to tax your city, but of course be careful because people are they don't like that. So they're gonna be very unhappy very quickly. Your approval rating is gonna drop like a rock. Rest is basically do nothing. Sometimes, it's very rare that I use that, but occasionally, you do that. So rest. View is the same as before, except that here you actually waste a turn to view something, okay? So that's the difference between this map and the strategy map. So don't use view here, okay? Use it in the strategy map. And option is the same as before. Okay. So this is it. Now I'm gonna go to a battle just to again explain to you what menu means there, okay? So I'm gonna quit this because there's no point, there's nobody I can attack anyway. I'm not gonna watch, and I'm gonna play again. So I'm gonna resume a saved game. The last one, this is the hidden fifth scenario, just like last time. I'm gonna attack Gibraltar. So I'm gonna use, let's say, Napoleon, Davout, Masséna, Cambronne, and Gugo. So basically same lineup as last time. I'm gonna use all the reserves. Okay, so reserves, I'll explain later. Food maximum, always take maximum whenever possible, and then you attack. So you have to wait for that little animation to finish, and then it will go into battle mode. Okay, so when you place your units, I would recommend doing this. So for example, infantry goes in front. Okay, so infantry in front, you put them here, and let's say here, and then artillery goes behind the infantry. Always try to protect your artillery. Artillery is king. You need to protect it with your life. So when you move, it's the same thing. Basically, you move forward with the infantry, right? Let's say here, around here. Well, okay, I can't move there, but let's say here and down, and artillery behind. Always. Don't try to be too clever, or it will backfire. So that's what you do. So now I will finally explain the last menu, which is the battle menu. So every time you click on a unit, you have a small menu that appears, okay? You have move, raid, wait, tactics, flee, and view. Move is just to move, okay? It depends where you move. Obviously, if you move through the mountains, you're gonna move very slowly. Forests are also pretty slow. If you move through open terrain, though, it's pretty fast, but it also depends on the weather. Some maps have mud where especially artillery gets stuck. And so if it's rainy, you basically can't move out of the mud, which is really super annoying. So yeah, when you invade actually is important, okay? If you invade in winter, it's going to be snowy. So you might not use artillery either. So be very careful when you attack. Next one is the raid menu. So this I explained actually last time, but basically it's just infantry, cavalry, and artillery, okay? That's how it works. Next is the wait menu. So again, if you don't want to move, then you just wait. Next one is a tactic menu. So this actually is only, commander menu first. But this one is only available to the commander of the battle, okay? So recover means that, like I said last time, when you cause enough damage, troops lose morale and they become disorganized. So to recover them, to try to recover them, you can try to do this, but it doesn't always work, okay? So if you're lucky, it will work, especially, it depends on your leader's ability. It might work, so try it, but it doesn't always work. Just bear that in mind. Rouse means you increase the morale of the troops directly around your commander. This can be useful in some situations, but it only increases by about 3 to 4 points per turn, which is not a lot, but anyway, now you know what it does. Mobilize. So this is to use the reserves. Actually, for example, here I have some infantry units which are a little bit depleted. So if I want to add to them, I can mobilize troops. But be careful because it reduces their morale and training, okay? So yeah, it's good that you can replenish them even to 100% capacity, but they're going to lose morale and training. So be careful with that. And activate, I'm not really sure what that means, actually. I don't remember at all. So you'll have to find out on your own. And tactics, so you can build, explode, entrench, and abandon. So build is to build bridges. On this map, you can't do that because there's no shallow water. It only works on shallow water, and it depends on your commander's building ability. Napoleon has A, which is great, but even with A, it doesn't mean that every time it works, okay? So be careful. Explode is the opposite. Explode, you're blowing up a bridge. This can be useful in defense when you need to prevent the enemy from crossing a bridge, so you can blow it up, and then the enemy has to waste turns trying to build a new bridge, or trying to cross the water, which is even more stupid, because they're completely defenseless if they do that. Entrench is Again, good in defense. It basically builds this kind of defensive structure around your unit. I think the only problem, though, is that you can't move out of it, but it's very good for defending, especially against infantry and cavalry. And finally, you got the view menu, which sometimes consumes a turn, I think, so be careful how to do that. But basically, you can view your units and the enemy units, like who's the commander at least. Usually doesn't tell you the amount of troops they have, though, or their training and morale. So it's not very useful, to be honest. And that's it. You can also flee if you want to retreat back. But I think if you flee, there is a penalty that you have to pay. There's a certain percentage of your troops which will, kind of desert, I guess. So yeah, try not to flee as much as possible. That's it, guys. I think I covered every single menu. Basically, yeah, that's how you play. You basically recruit your army, you train them, you increase their morale, you invade other nations, again, using artillery at the back, using infantry for the front. Try to bombard the enemy as much as possible before you send in the other troops, okay? You have to soften the enemy as much as possible. Then they're easy pickings. So yeah, just do that. Be careful, be smart. Remember, this is kind of a chess game, so sometimes you have to move back also. Don't be afraid to do that. And yeah, that's how you play L'Empereur. It seems kind of overwhelming at first, but it's really not. It's a very cool game, very simple game also. Very interesting. Try it out. That's it for today, guys. Otaku Ops signing off. See you next time.